The red lights came on first. Then the alarms screamed. Inside ADX Florence, the most secure prison in America, every screen in the control room went black at the same time. Doors that were never supposed to move unlocked. Steel clicked. Bolts slid back. A guard fell to the floor, bleeding from his head. And somewhere deep inside the prison, a door opened that had not opened in years. No one was ready for that. The control room filled with shouting. Hands slammed buttons that did nothing. Radios crackled with broken voices. System down. Cells responding on their own. Wing D just lost power. Mark Reynolds, the shift supervisor, stood frozen for 1 second. Then he moved. Manual lockdown, he shouted. Now, every team move. But even as he spoke, he knew something was wrong. This was not a normal failure. ADX Florence was built to survive fires, riots, earthquakes, and attacks. It was designed so that one mistake could not cause chaos. But tonight, chaos was already inside. Down one long concrete hallway, an inmate stepped out of his cell. That was not supposed to happen. His name was Daniel Price. He had been inside ADX for 8 years. He knew the rules. He knew the silence. He knew that doors never opened unless a guard made them open. Yet here he was, standing in the hallway, staring at a door that had just unlocked by itself. Daniel did not smile. He did not run. He felt fear. Because if his door had opened, then others had too. And that meant control was breaking. The alarms cut out. Silence fell again. Heavy. Deep. Wrong. This was the moment that would later be called the incident that changed ADX Florence forever. But before that night, before the alarms and the blood and the open doors, the prison was calm. ADX Florence sat alone in the Colorado desert. Gray concrete. Razor wire. No towers needed. No windows you could see through. Inside, every sound was watched. Every step was counted. Most inmates spent 23 hours a day alone. Guards trusted the systems more than their own eyes. Mark Reynolds had worked there for 15 years. He believed in the prison. He believed it was unbreakable. That belief would not survive the night. Earlier that day, nothing felt strange. Morning checks passed without issue. Doors opened and closed on schedule. Cameras worked. Power stayed steady. At 3:17 p.m., a maintenance alert flashed on a side screen. A small one. Easy to ignore. Subsystem sync delay. A tech noted it. Logged it. Moved on. That small moment mattered more than anyone knew. As night fell, the prison moved into its quiet hours. Fewer movements. Fewer checks. Fewer eyes. That was when the systems began to drift. Deep inside the prison, in a secured maintenance corridor, a panel light blinked yellow. Then red. Then off. No one saw it. At 11:42 p.m., a guard in Wing D reported a door responding slowly. It closed 3 seconds late. 3 seconds. The report was filed. Nothing was done. At 12:08 a.m., the backup power system tested itself. It passed. But one line of code failed to return to its original place. That line would open a door. At 12:41 a.m., the first alarm triggered. It was brief. A chirp. A blink. Then it stopped. Mark glanced at the screen. Nothing showed wrong. He leaned back in his chair. At 12:43 a.m., everything broke. Every monitor went dark. The main board shut down. The room filled with alarms, then lost them too. And doors unlocked. Not all of them. Just enough. Daniel Price heard the click before he saw the light turn green. His door. He stood up slowly. His heart beat hard. His hands shook. He waited. Nothing happened. No guards. No orders. He stepped closer. The door slid open an inch. Daniel backed away. He had learned one thing in ADX Florence. If something seems like freedom, it is usually a trap. Across the hall, another door opened. Then another. Someone laughed. Low. Nervous. That sound had not been heard in years. In the control room, Mark grabbed a radio. All units, report status. Static answered him. Then one voice. Panicked. We have inmates out of cells. Mark felt cold. How many? I don't know. That was worse than a number. Mark ran for the manual control panel. It was old. Heavy. Rarely used. He pulled the lever. Nothing happened. He pulled again. Still nothing. The system had locked him out. Inside Wing D, guards moved fast. Flashlights cut through the dark. Orders were shouted. Inmates down. Back into cells. Some inmates obeyed. Others froze. One ran. That was when a guard slipped on the concrete floor and hit his head. Blood spread under the red light. The prison had crossed a line. Daniel dropped to the floor when guards rushed past his door. He pressed his face to the concrete. He did not want to be seen. He did not want to be blamed. But blame was already moving. Somewhere else in the prison, far from Daniel, a door deeper than any cell began to unlock. It was not connected to the main system. It was older. It had been sealed after an incident years ago. An incident no one talked about. The bolts slid back slowly, one by one. In the control room, a screen flickered back on. Just one. It showed a hallway no one expected to see. Mark stared at it. "No," he whispered, "because that hallway should never be open. And whatever was behind that door was never meant to come out." The screen cut to black again. The alarms stayed silent. And the incident that changed ADX Florence forever had only just begun. The prison did not sleep that night. Even when the alarms stayed silent, the walls felt awake. Mark Reynolds stood in the control room, staring at dead screens that reflected his own face back at him. He had never felt this helpless inside ADX Florence. This place was built on control. Without it, the prison was just concrete and people locked together in fear. "Get me power," Mark said. His voice was calm, but his hands shook. "Any power." A technician worked fast on a backup console. Sweat ran down his face. "We might get partial feeds," the technician said. "Not full control." "Do it," Mark replied. In Wing D, guards moved cell by cell. Flashlights bounced off steel doors. Orders echoed down the hall. Daniel Price stayed on the floor of his cell. His door was still open. He did not move. He listened. He heard boots. He heard breathing. He heard something worse. Whispers. Inmates were talking to each other, passing information. That almost never happened here. A guard stopped at Daniel's door. "Stay down," the guard said. His voice was tight. "Do not move." Daniel nodded and pressed himself flatter to the floor. The guard looked down the hall. 2 other doors were still open. "That shouldn't be happening," the guard muttered into his radio. Static answered. Somewhere deeper inside the prison, the old door finished unlocking. It opened only a few inches. Enough. Inside was a short corridor, thick with dust. No cameras worked there. No sensors had been active for years. A man stepped forward. His name was Samuel Crow. He had been locked away longer than most guards had worked at ADX Florence. Official records said he was still sealed behind that door. Official records were now wrong. Samuel breathed in slowly. The air tasted different. Free, but not safe. He smiled. Back in the control room, one screen flickered on again. Grainy. Weak. Mark leaned forward. The image showed a restricted corridor. Mark's stomach dropped. "That door is open," he said. The technician swallowed. "It shouldn't even have power." Mark grabbed the radio again. "All units," he said. "If you are near the old isolation wing, pull back. Do not engage." No answer. In Wing D, Daniel heard shouting grow louder. A fight broke out somewhere down the hall. Not fists. Panic. Guards rushed past his cell again. Then the lights went out. Complete darkness. Someone screamed. Metal slammed against metal. Daniel covered his head and stayed still. Emergency lights came on seconds later. Red. Dim. A guard lay on the floor, not moving. Another guard knelt beside him. "His breathing," the guard said. "But barely." That was when Daniel saw it. At the far end of the hall, a shadow moved the wrong way. Toward the guards. Not running. Walking. Calm. In the control room, power surged back for one moment. All screens flashed on at once. Mark saw chaos. Open cells. Guards pinned down. Inmates crouched or frozen in fear. Then one screen caught his eye. The old wing. A single figure stood in the hallway. Mark recognized the face from old training files. "Oh no," he whispered. The screens went black again. In Wing D, the shadows stepped into the red light. An inmate whispered a name. Samuel Crow. Guards raised their weapons. "Down," one shouted. Samuel stopped. He raised his hands slowly. "I didn't open the door," Samuel said calmly. "But I can close it." The guards hesitated. That hesitation would later be studied in reports and hearings. It would be called the moment control truly slipped. Before anyone could speak again, alarms exploded back to life. Not warning alarms. Containment alarms. Steel doors began slamming shut across the prison. Too fast. Too random. Daniel's door slammed closed. So did the doors trapping several guards inside the hallway. Mark watched the system partially reboot itself. But it was wrong. Doors closed where they should not. Locked people together who should never be near each other. And one final alert flashed on a single screen before everything shut down again. *** internal breach, level black ***. Mark felt his heart sink. Level black had only been used once before. And the last time, ADX Florence had nearly lost control forever. Level black changed everything. When the alert flashed, it triggered protocols most guards had only read about. The prison was no longer in normal lockdown. It was in containment mode. That meant one thing. ADX Florence was now protecting itself. Mark Reynolds stood frozen as the system made choices without him. Steel doors sealed whole sections. Air vents shut. Lights dimmed to emergency levels. He grabbed the radio again. "All units, listen carefully," he said. "The system is unstable. Do not rely on doors. Do not rely on lights. Move only on direct orders." Static answered him. Then one voice broke through. "This is Officer Kelly," the guard said. "I'm trapped in Wing D with inmates. Doors locked from both sides." Mark closed his eyes for a second. "How many?" he asked. 5 inmates. One of them is Samuel Crow." Mark felt the weight of that name again. "Do not engage," Mark said. "Repeat. Do not engage." In Wing D, Officer Kelly backed away slowly. His flashlight shook in his hand. The red emergency light made faces look wrong. Flat. Sharp. Samuel Crow stood still. Calm. Watching everything. "You're afraid," Samuel said. Kelly did not answer. "You should be," Samuel continued. "This system doesn't know the difference between control and fear." One inmate began to cry. Another banged on his door. Samuel raised a hand. "Stop," he said. The banging stopped. Daniel Price watched from behind his cell door. The small window allowed only a narrow view. But he could see enough. He saw guards trapped. He saw inmates frozen. He saw Samuel Crow turn his head slightly, as if he could sense Daniel watching. Daniel stepped back. He had a bad feeling. Deep under the prison, the backup servers tried to rebuild the system. Lines of code fought each other. Old commands clashed with new ones. Someone had changed something. That truth was slowly becoming clear. In the maintenance level, far from the cell blocks, a man crouched beside an open panel. His prison uniform was clean. Too clean. His name was Evan Cole. He had arrived at ADX Florence 6 months earlier. Quiet. No trouble. No friends. No one had noticed he once worked in systems engineering. Evan listened to the hum of machines and smiled. "Almost there," he whispered. Back in the control room, one screen flickered back to life. Just one. Mark rushed to it. The image showed a map of the prison. Sections blinked red. "Too many." "This is wrong," the technician said. "The system thinks there are threats everywhere." "That's because there are," Mark replied. Another radio crackle came through. "We have an injured guard in Wing B," a voice said. "Door sealed. We can't reach him." Mark slammed his fist on the desk. ADX Florence was designed so no single failure could cause disaster. But this was not a single failure. This was many small ones lining up. In Wing D, Samuel Crow slowly sat down on the floor. Calm. Patient. "This prison taught me something," he said. "Control is an idea, not a fact." Officer Kelly tightened his grip on his weapon. "Stay where you are," Kelly said. Samuel nodded. "I will," he said. "For now." Suddenly, a loud mechanical sound echoed through the wing. A door began to open. Not a cell door. A security gate. Daniel felt his breath catch. That gate separated the wing from the inner corridor. If it opened, nothing would stop movement. Guards shouted. "Inmates down." The gate stopped halfway. Lights flickered. Then the gate slammed shut again with a crash. Silence followed. Everyone froze. In the control room, Mark saw the same moment on the screen. The system log flashed a message. **** manual override accepted ***. Mark stared at it. "That's impossible," the technician said. "No one has access." Mark looked up slowly. "Someone does," he said. Deep in the maintenance level, Evan Cole stood up from the panel. Sweat ran down his face. His hands shook, but his eyes were bright. He spoke softly to himself. "They'll blame the system," he said. "They always do." Back in Wing D, Samuel Crow smiled again. He looked straight at the camera in the corner of the hall, the one that had just turned back on. "Hello," he said. The feed cut out. And somewhere inside ADX Florence, another door began to unlock. The prison began to breathe again. Not calmly. Not evenly. In short, sharp bursts. Emergency lights flickered across ADX Florence as partial power returned to some systems. Fans turned on and off. Locks clicked without warning. The building felt alive, and not in a good way. Mark Reynolds stood over the control desk, eyes locked on the one screen still working. It showed only pieces of the prison at a time. Hallways. Corners. Shadows. "Give me anything stable," Mark said. The technician nodded and typed fast. "We're getting fragments," he said. "The system keeps rejecting itself." "That means it's being told to," Mark replied. The truth was clear now. This was not a random failure. Someone inside had touched the system. In Wing D, Officer Kelly tried to keep his breathing slow. 5 inmates. 1 injured guard behind a locked door. Red lights. No clear orders. Samuel Crow sat on the floor, legs crossed, calm as stone. "You're waiting," Kelly said. Samuel looked up. "So are you." Daniel Price stayed back from his door. He had seen enough to know one thing. This night would change everything. A new sound echoed down the wing. Heavy footsteps. Not guards. Too slow. Too steady. Kelly turned. From the inner corridor, a man stepped into view. Prison uniform. No visible weapon. Hands relaxed at his sides. Evan Cole. Kelly raised his weapon. "Stop right there." Evan stopped. "I'm not here to fight," Evan said calmly. "I'm here to fix what broke." Samuel stood up. "So this is you," Samuel said. Evan glanced at him and smiled slightly. "You were never meant to be free yet." Daniel felt his stomach twist. Kelly backed away. "Both of you, down on the floor." No one moved. In the control room, a new alert flashed. ***, multiple unauthorized access points ***. Mark cursed under his breath. "Lockdown maintenance levels," he ordered. The technician shook his head. "Those commands aren't sticking." Mark grabbed a phone and dialed a secure number. "This is Reynolds at ADX Florence," he said. "We have an internal breach. Possible inmate system access." A pause. Then a calm voice answered. "Understood. Containment teams are deploying." That helped, but not enough. Back in Wing D, Evan took one slow step forward. Kelly fired a warning shot into the wall. The sound was deafening in the narrow hall. Inmates screamed. Daniel dropped to the floor again. Samuel raised his hand. "Easy," he said. "If he wanted you dead, you would bear." Evan stopped walking. "You talk too much," Evan said. "And you plan too much," Samuel replied. The lights suddenly cut out again. Total darkness. Then a loud mechanical groan rolled through the wing. A gate began to open. This time, it did not stop halfway. Kelly shouted into his radio. "Gate opening in Wing D." "Repeat, gate opening." Static answered. Red lights snapped back on. The gate was fully open. The inner corridor lay exposed. Mark saw it on the screen and felt his chest tighten. "That gate opens," he said, "and we lose control of the wing." In Wing D, Evan stepped toward the open corridor. Samuel moved too. Fast. He grabbed Evan's arm and slammed him into the wall. Guards shouted. Kelly fired again, closer this time. The bullet hit the floor. Evan broke free and ran. Samuel did not chase him. "Stop him," Kelly shouted. But the corridor swallowed Evan whole. Daniel watched, heart pounding, as guards rushed forward, unsure whether to follow. In the control room, Mark saw Evan disappear from the camera feed. "Seal that corridor," he said. The system responded too late. The gate slammed shut again. Evan was gone. Samuel Crow sat back down on the floor. "Now," he said softly, "the real damage begins." Mark stared at the screen as a final message appeared. ***, external oversight initiated ***. That message meant one thing. ADX Florence was about to be exposed, and whatever had been hidden inside its walls was about to come out. The message stayed on the screen. External oversight initiated. Mark Reynolds knew what that meant. Phones would ring. Federal eyes would turn toward ADX Florence. Every mistake would be questioned. But none of that mattered if they could not regain control first. "Containment teams are 10 minutes out," the voice on the phone said. "Hold what you can." Mark looked at the screens. He was not sure there was anything left to hold. In Wing D, the gate had closed again, but the damage was done. Guards stood in a tight group now. Weapons raised. Breathing hard. Samuel Crow sat calmly, as if nothing had happened. Daniel Price stayed silent in the back of his cell. He had never seen guards look this unsure. Officer Kelly spoke into his radio again. We lost an inmate. Evan Cole. He escaped into maintenance. This time, a voice answered. Copy, the voice said. All units, Evan Cole is priority target. Daniel's heart skipped. They were saying it out loud now. This was real. Deep in the prison, Evan moved fast through narrow tunnels. Pipes hissed above him. Red lights blinked on and off. He knew these paths better than most guards. He had studied them for months. He stopped at another panel and pulled it open. This is where it ends, he whispered. Back in the control room, alarms began to chirp again. Short bursts. Warnings stacking on top of each other. What now? The technician asked. Mark leaned closer to the screen. He's splitting the system, Mark said. Section by section. Another alert flashed. Airflow control compromised. Mark's face went pale. That affects the whole prison, he said. In Wing D, the air vents went silent. Then hot air rushed in. Inmates began coughing. Guards felt sweat on their backs. Samuel looked up. His forcing movement, Samuel said. People panic when they can't breathe. Kelly ignored him and shouted orders. Stay down. Everyone stay down. Daniel covered his mouth with his shirt. His chest burned. In the control room, Mark slammed the emergency override. Restore airflow to D, he said. The system did not respond. Another message appeared. Override denied. Mark felt anger rise. He's still inside, Mark said. And he's in control. In the maintenance tunnel, Evan smiled as he watched numbers change. They'll move now, he said softly. Back in Wing D, one inmate began banging on his door. Another screamed for help. Guards tried to calm them, but fear spread fast. Then a loud clang echoed through the wing. A door unlocked. Not a cell. The door to the medical unit. Daniel's eyes widened. That door connected to two other wings. Kelly shouted. Fall back. Secure the medical corridor. But the system moved faster than the guards. Two more doors unlocked. The wing was no longer sealed. In the control room, Mark watched red zones spread across the map. We're losing containment, the technician said. Mark grabbed the radio. All units, prepare for full emergency lockdown, he said. This is not a drill. Then the screen flashed again. One final alert appeared. Core security door unlocking. Mark froze. That door was the last barrier. If it opened, ADX Florence would never be the same. In the depths of the prison, a massive steel door began to move. Slowly, loudly, and everyone inside ADX Florence felt it. The sound of the core security door echoed through the prison like thunder. Metal groaned. Bolts slid back. A deep, heavy noise that no one at ADX Florence ever wanted to hear. Daniel felt it through the floor. What door is that? Someone yelled from another cell. No one answered. The guards knew. And that made it worse. Officer Kelly backed away slowly, eyes locked on the medical corridor. His hand shook as he held his weapon. That door was never supposed to open, he whispered. In the control room, Mark Reynolds stood frozen. The red warning light filled the room with a harsh glow. Status, he demanded. The technician swallowed hard. The core door is unlocking. We can't stop it. Mark slammed his fist on the desk. How? That system is offline from the rest. Another voice came through the radio. Calm. Too calm. It's me, Evan Cole said. Mark grabbed the mic. Evan. Stop this. You've made your point. Evan laughed softly. You hid what happened here. You buried it. I'm just opening the doors you locked. In Wing D, the core door finished opening with a final loud bang. A cold rush of air moved through the hall. Daniel stared through the small window of his cell. He saw something no inmate should ever see. The central corridor. Long wide. Empty. A place where no prisoners were ever allowed. Until now. Alarms wailed again, louder than before. Red lights spun across the walls. All inmates, returned to cells immediately. A voice boomed over the speakers. No one moved. Fear held them still. Samuel Crow stood up slowly inside his cell. This is the incident, he said quietly. This is the one they tried to erase. Daniel looked at him. What do you mean? Samuel stepped closer to the glass. Years ago, a door like this opened. Men died, and the truth vanished. Before Daniel could ask more, guards rushed into the corridor, forming a line. Heavy boots pounded the floor. Kelly shouted, "Lock it down. Now." But the system did not listen. Lights flickered, then went out. Darkness swallowed the wing. For a moment, there was only silence. Then screams. Somewhere down the corridor, inmates were moving. Doors clanged. Metal hit metal. Daniel pressed himself against the back wall of his cell, heart racing. "This can't be real," he whispered. Emergency lights flickered on, casting long shadows. Through the red glow, Daniel saw a figure walking calmly down the central corridor. Evan Cole. He held a small device in his hand, wires hanging loose. Guards shouted. Weapons aimed. "Drop it!" Kelly yelled. Evan stopped and looked up. "Too late," he said. He pressed a button. The prison shook. A deep boom rolled through the walls. Dust fell from the ceiling. In the control room, screens went black one by one. Mark Reynolds felt the floor move under his feet. "What did he do?" the technician cried. Mark stared at the final screen still working. His face drained of color. "He cut the final lock," Mark said. "The prison just lost its spine." Down in the wing, the red lights went out completely. Total darkness. Then a single voice echoed through the hall. "This is what you tried to hide," Evan said. And somewhere nearby, another door began to open. The second door opened slower than the first. Its sound was worse. A long, dragging scream of metal that crawled through the darkness and into every mind inside ADX Florence. Daniel covered his ears, but he could still feel it. "This is wrong," someone cried from down the row. "This is really wrong." Emergency lights flickered back on, weak and shaking. Red beams cut through the dust-filled air. The door at the far end of the corridor was now open. Behind it was a place Daniel had only heard about in whispers. The old isolation wing. Samuel Crow stared at it, his face pale. "They sealed that place after the first incident," he said. "No records. No names. Just silence." Guards shouted orders, voices cracking with fear. "Fall back. Hold the line." Officer Kelly wiped sweat from his face. He had worked at ADX for 15 years. He had never seen this wing open. "Mark," he said into his radio, "we've got exposure to the old wing." Static answered. Then Mark Reynolds' voice came through, broken and tense. "I know. And if that wing is open, God help us." From the darkness inside the old wing, footsteps echoed. Slow. Measured. Someone was walking out. Daniel leaned toward his cell window, his heart hammering. A man stepped into the red light. He wore an orange jumpsuit so faded it looked almost gray. His head was shaved. His eyes were calm. Too calm. "Who is that?" Daniel whispered. Samuel's voice shook. "That's not possible." The man looked around, breathing in deeply like someone tasting fresh air for the first time. "I thought I'd never see this place again," the man said. Guards raised their weapons. "Down on the ground." Kelly shouted. The man smiled. "You still use the same words," he said. "Same tone. Same fear." Kelly's eyes widened. "You're dead," he said. "We watched you die." The man shook his head. "No. You watched me disappear." More figures moved behind him. Shadows. Shapes. Men who were never supposed to exist. Daniel felt sick. "These are the ghosts," Samuel said. "The ones erased after the incident." Alarms tried to restart but failed, dying into weak beeps. Evan Cole stepped forward from the shadows, standing beside the man. "Meet the truth," Evan said. "The people your prison buried alive." Mark's voice finally returned over the speakers, shaking. "All units, do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." But it was already too late. One of the guards fired. The shot rang out, loud and sharp. The bullet hit the wall. In that moment, everything broke. The men from the old wing surged forward. Guards screamed. Orders vanished into chaos. Daniel dropped to the floor as the hallway exploded with movement. Samuel grabbed the bars of his cell. "This is how it started last time," he yelled. "And this is how it ends if no one stops it." Through the confusion, Daniel locked eyes with the man who had come out first. The man stared back at him. Then he pointed, right at Daniel's cell, and smiled. The man's finger stayed pointed at Daniel. Not at any guard. Not at any alarm. At him. Daniel stepped back from the bars, his heart slamming so hard it hurt. He did not know why he had been chosen, and that scared him more than anything else. "Why him?" Samuel whispered from the next cell. "Why you?" Before Daniel could answer, the lights went out again. This time, fully. No red glow. No flicker. Pure darkness. Screams filled the hallway. Boots ran. Metal clanged. Someone fell and cried out in pain. A loud thud followed, then silence. Daniel pressed his back to the wall, breathing fast. He could smell sweat and fear in the air. Then, click. A small light came on. It came from right outside Daniel's cell. The man from the old wing stood there, holding a broken flashlight. Up close, Daniel could see deep lines on his face, marks of years spent alone. "You're Daniel Harris," the man said calmly. Daniel froze. "How do you know my name?" The man smiled again, but this time it looked sad. "Because you were not supposed to be here. You were supposed to notice." "Notice what?" Daniel asked. Behind the man, Evan Cole appeared, his face tense. "We didn't plan for things to move this fast," Evan said. "The doors were meant to open one at a time." Samuel shouted, "You've lost control. Guards are down." "I know," Evan said quietly. "But the truth doesn't come out clean." Gunfire echoed from far away. Then another alarm began to howl, louder than before. The man turned back to Daniel. "Years ago," he said, "this prison tested something. A way to erase people without killing them." Daniel felt cold all over. "They called it permanent isolation," the man continued. "No records. No lawyers. No names. Just a door that closed and never opened again." Samuel's voice broke. "I heard rumors. I thought they were lies." "They weren't," the man said. "We survived. Barely." Evan stepped closer to Daniel's cell. "You were placed next to Samuel for a reason," he said. "You listen. You remember. And you haven't been broken yet." Daniel shook his head. "I'm just a kid who made a mistake." Evan's eyes softened. "So were we." A loud explosion shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Over the speakers, Mark Reynolds' voice screamed, "Lockdown has failed. Repeat, lockdown has failed." The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a small keycard. Daniel's breath caught. "Open my cell," Daniel said without thinking. Samuel turned to him. "Are you crazy?" The man nodded slowly. "That's why I pointed at you." Footsteps thundered closer. Guards were coming, or worse. Evan swiped the keycard. Daniel's cell door began to slide open. And the moment it did, the lights came back on, revealing dozens of inmates now standing free in the hallway, all staring at Daniel as if he was the answer to something they had waited years for.